So, good morning.
Good morning.
What are the challenges in understanding public history today?
I suppose it's a very noisy environment. I mean, there's lots and lots of different things that people can be doing with their time, and so every month, every week or day, we're battling to get people to read history, to engage with history. There is something, I think, about the digital revolution which is very anti-historical in a way. It's very to do with things which are contemporary. But having said that, at the moment things are going very well. You know,
So, what's the problem with the digital revolution in terms of public history?
and we're aware in publishing the whole time that we're fighting other media simply because there is now so many things you can do. If you think, I don't know, 50, 60 years ago, you know, the arrival of television, for example, was new for many people. And if people only have very limited leisure time when they're not working, then it's a constant battlefield. You know, there's no reason why anything should be read or understood in terms of history at all. And so we must constantly fight to make it interesting and make it accessible. And that's true, I suppose, for museums. It's true for different, small private groups. It's true for everybody. You know, people can do something else.
Is history not more accessible than ever?
It's accessible, but equally I think it's quite devalued. I mean, you can be quite interested, and you can very quickly look something up on the internet, but we're battling against everything. If most people are working most of the time, and they're eating and they're sleeping, it's a battlefield around maybe 2 or 3 hours a day, perhaps, for more leisured people. And so it's always the possibility that actually no one would be interested. The wide public interest in history is quite a recent phenomenon in itself, and there's no reason why it should continue, and it could stop.
Has this territorial fight for the public's time and attention not existed forever?
Oh yes, it's always existed in one way or another, definitely. But yes, it's not worse in a way, but I do think that it's a sort of tension all the time. You know, it's something we have to be aware of. You know, every day we look at our sales figures, and we could sell nothing. You know, there are many businesses, such as say Kodak, who found themselves suddenly selling nothing because of technological changes and changes in priorities of people. And I think in that sense we're no different from other media. I mean, for example, the collapse of many people just not watching television in the way they used to, for example, or cinemas. Everything is under pressure, and in some ways it's a creative pressure, but there are definitely winners and losers. There's no reason why anything should go right. We're specialising in publishing large history books, which require a lot of time, and some of those books sell a lot of copies, and it is possible to see a situation where people would view that as being just too much time. That if people are educated to think in terms of very short attention span, then history could suffer, I think.
But the appetite hasn't gone anywhere.
Not at the moment, no. But I think we're always aware we have to reinvent ourselves all the time. Like different subjects, different people are interested in different things at different times, and I don't think we can assume a constant interest of any kind at all. It can just disappear. I think that's probably too pessimistic, because the number of, say, educated people, well-educated people arriving in European society at the moment is larger than any time before. The number of people who can read quite difficult books, for example, is enormously larger than, say, 30 years ago, 20 years ago even. And so that's remarkable. But whether that's how they choose to use their leisure time is an interesting question.
So is this what you'd most like to convey to your colleagues today?
I think yes, I think we should constantly query what we're doing. I think every year is a different challenge. So, for example, for publishing, the challenge of e-books was a huge problem for the past 3 or 4 years, which is now, I think, probably stopped being a problem. It's settled down. It's a good part of the business. Whereas we were looking at a world almost, say, 2 years ago, where it looked as though almost all British bookshops were about to shut. For example, that was our main problem, because there was no investor confidence in their future. if everybody was going to read ebooks, then you don't need bookshops. And it was really the intervention of one, Russian millionaire who bought the main bookshop chain in Britain that stopped that. But now it's clear that ebooks aren't going to take over. And so that's a huge change for us. We can be more confident this year, but we spent the past 3 years particularly very worried that simply people would be unable to access books. That people would only be able to buy books because they needed to in some way, rather than through browsing or through casual purchase, which is where most people, I think, buy books.
But you're more optimistic now as opposed to 2 years ago?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the ebooks turn out to be just another format which some people use some of the time, and so it's only 20% of our business, and so 80% of our business remains paper, and that's stabilized, and so that's a huge change. We were imagining a future where it would be almost impossible to explain to people what they ought to buy, and without bookshops, even as windows in which people could see what's being published, most of the publishing business would have collapsed. And so we're pleased, pleased and grateful, but we're also very aware that we need to keep being relevant. We need to be doing new kinds of publishing, different prices, different designs, different kinds of approach. And some of these things work, some of them don't work. But that's each year. It's different. But yeah, it's a more confident environment this year than it was last year. So, and I think that's true for newspapers too. Newspapers is it's for most media, I think, that it's the electronic revolution has happened, but it hasn't happened in an overwhelming way. And it's in a way, Amazon has failed in its attempts to take over, which is a relief, I think, for us.
Excellent. Thank you very much.